Hello, welcome back to the channel 12-Step Guide with Troyo. I'm excited to be able to teach this portion of the 12 steps. I'm honored to teach it to anyone that would like to learn. So this is step 4, column 3, resentment list. What I'd like to do is introduce you to some information first so you see it, so then when we uncover it in the reading, it's not the first time you've seen it. So first, let me show you my basic resentment list. And you're going to see column 3. I've just written column 3. But what I really want to do is introduce you to this portion of it where it says column 3, and you have some different pieces of information. And we're going to look over that information in the reading today. And I'm going to verbalize it now. This column where it starts, self-esteem, I've got a little parenthesis next to it. It's the way I do it. SE, security, S, ambitions, A, personal relations, PR, acceptable sex relations, AS, hidden sex relations, HS, and pride with a P. The acceptable and hidden sex relations, I've broken it out into that. You'll see it's going to be sex relations. So I find it more helpful. And along the way, you'll find what works for you. Uh, this isn't a cookie cutter approach, one size fits all as we evolve. In the beginning, we will see most of it will fit all of us, but as we progress, the question will be, does this fit you personally? And so I'll get into that more in the reading again. I'm going to try to introduce this stuff again and again so that you understand it. So today, we're in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. I've got the original, and that's page 77, but yours in a newer version might be page 64. It might be page 65. So let's recap a little bit. I've done two videos in the past about column 1 and column 2. If you haven't reviewed those, I encourage you to do so first. You'll lose some traction, and you don't want to lose traction. You want to really understand the hows and whys of this. But off the bat here, so in the big book, in step 4, we started with column 1. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry, and we listed that top to bottom. People, places, things, situations, whatever might make you angry or cause you to feel resentment. And then we asked ourselves why we were angry. And that was column 2, top to bottom. Again, I've done previous videos on it. So now we're going to start with column 3. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relations, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore. That's angry. We were burned up. On our grudge list, this is our 4th-step list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem? That was the first one. Now we're going to get on the list. Our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations, which had been interfered with. Sex relations in this capacity is intimacy, couple of things. You'll notice pride wasn't listed there, yet I have pride listed there, so we're going to find out why I've done that. So on that list there, you understand where the beginning of that list came from. And we're going to review that more as we progress here. We were usually as definite as this example. So in the book, in meetings, we would have read this and trying to read a whole chapter, and it was clumsy reading this. It wasn't necessarily, at least for me, easy to understand. I didn't find it was easy for anyone else to understand, and I've been to thousands of 12-step meetings. So what I'm going to do is show you a quick thing here. Here's the examples. So I'm going to read you the examples, and I'm going to go across to get to column 3. So, and these are just examples. This isn't Bill and Lois, the founder. These are just examples. So I'm resentful at Mr. Brown because his attention to my wife. Notice these are very short trapping doors. They're nothing, no big writing here. And that affected his sex relations and self-esteem. Now I've broken out the sex relations into acceptable sex relations or hidden sex relations. So let's review for a minute what that might be. In this case, the attention to his wife, it's for him it would be probably just acceptable sex relations that just some concern there. So how you feel about it, willing to speak with the appropriate people about it. So acceptable, when you're talking about sex, it's not necessarily, it's not something you're talking to just everybody about, but how do you feel about it? That's how you separate the acceptable sex relations, things that happen in a marriage, generally sex in a marriage, for example, or hidden sex relations. That's more of a unacceptable sex relations in some capacity, something you might prefer to hide from others, well, whether voluntary or involuntary. It might include cheating. It could be sexual violations that happened, experimentation, sexually transmitted diseases, anything that is unacceptable, a pregnancy that you didn't want to happen. So it's not something that you would want others to have knowledge of. So anyway, and so what about self-esteem? So a level of confidence in one's own worth or abilities, a level of self-respect, how you feel about yourself. So he feels that those were affected. So let's use the next example for Mr. Brown. Told my wife of my mistress. So that affected sex relations. It probably affected both acceptable and hidden sex relations, I would guess there. And self-esteem, affected self-esteem. Now, if you're reviewing this from home, you're going to notice the word fear, and that's in parentheses. Let's disregard that for now. The reason is that's column 4. Right now, trying to expand our mind to understand the whole concept is more than what's necessary. So I just want you to understand, though, that that's column 4 in our examples. So then another example, Brown may get my job at the office. Well, this is affecting his security and his self-esteem. So let's look at what security or insecurity, if you want to view it that way, might look like. So financial security, material security, emotional security, emotionally inside, or spiritual security. What might spiritual security look like? Well, a certain time of year, let's imagine a scenario where someone has passed and we'd feel upset a certain time of year or confused or frustrated, whatever. It could be just a simple example of that. There's plenty of others. So he goes on to the next example. Mrs. Jones. She's a nut. She snubbed me. She committed her husband for drinking. He's my friend. She's a gossip. And in this case, he feels that personal relations, self esteem were affected. So, what might personal relations look like in the deeper concept? Relations with friends, relatives, coworkers, interaction with people during everyday events that require personal touch, such as shopping, banking, telephoning, email, etc. Even many businesses relationships reduced to a personal level at some degree. So, in step 4, personal relations are relations where maybe our interaction with a person was affected by information they had learned about us or us about them. If we don't like being around someone, either at work or at a private function, we're feeling this discomfort at a personal level, for example. So let's move on. I have to turn the page in this book. On the other books, the examples are all in one page. So the next example, my employer, the cause. He's unreasonable or unjust, or she. Overbearing, threatens to fire me for drinking and padding my expense account. Well, it affects his self esteem and his security. And then my wife. Well, she misunderstands and nags. She likes Brown, wants the house put in her name. What's going on with his wife and Mr. Brown, I might ask. So he feels it affects his pride. Now we're understanding why I put pride on that list I showed you in the beginning. Bill snuck that in. And we're going to look at that in a little while, a little deeper. He also feels it affects his personal and sex relations and security. There's another one here that we didn't cover, and I want to just cover it now. Ambitions, the level of desire or willingness to succeed at, pursue, protect, or engage in something. Our personal ambitions, does it affect our efforts in that context? So let's review pride for a second before we move on. Maybe a sense of one's own proper dignity or value, self-respect, an excessively high opinion of oneself, conceit, an excessive love of self. Now, Bill tied these to the 7 deadly sins in the step book, and in we're going to get into the step book today, but first I'm going to teach you the big book version before the step book came out, and then we'll go from there. So what I want to do is I want to continue reading the rest of the basic directions for column 3. We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. So when we're going back through our lives, we're doing it in column 3 from top to bottom. This starts to give a little more color that we're building these lists from top to bottom. We're not going left to right, because by going left to right, we connect with it. Then things can go bad. Brown and the wife were off drinking maybe or going berserk. But you're filling your head right now with how you might have been affected by these things and understanding those definitions and if they relate to you personally. So the first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore, we stayed angry. Sometimes it was remorse. Does it affect me in a remorse? We're going to add remorse to that column, and we'll get back to that. I'm going to review the whole list here soon, but that's where we're getting remorse from. And then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seems to win. Our moments of triumph were short lived. In war, the winners get to tell the story. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. We're going to throw those two words on the list. Does it affect me in a futile manner? Does it make me unhappy? We'll get into that a little more. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile? But with the alcoholic whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, the business of resentment is infinitely grave. That's somber. We found that it is fatal, a death sentence. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. We shut off the good things in our life that could be happening. The insanity of alcohol returns, and we drink again. And for alcoholics to drink is destruction. As with many other addictions, addictive behavior, or emotional suffering, it sends us back into the insanity. And with us, to drink is to die, for the late stage alcoholic such as myself. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. Those are a couple of extremes. He's going to talk about that in the step book also. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison. So the dubious luxury is something not to be relied upon. All right. So that, if you were doing just a big book, 4-step, and not considering the step book at all, that's pretty much where it would end. You could take those other words and add them to your list. But what I want to do is combine the step book and the big book together now. Step 4 and the step book come out 13 years later. And what I want to do is introduce you to more words. We're expanding how we may have been affected by our resentment list. And so I'm not going to read from the step book today, but I am going to pull a lot of words out of it and describe them. And the reason that when we do read the step book, if you've read it as I did many, many times, for the first time it will make sense to you in a way that it never did before. Or if it's the first time reading it, you will better understand how these things fit and how step 4 fits. And if you've been to 12-step meetings and you believe they didn't work for you, give this a shot. See this is tangible stuff here. This achievable stuff, you can reach out. This is what we're made of here, who we are as humans. Nothing elusive here. Some of the step 1, 2, or 3, you might have sometimes felt it a little bit unachievable. Well, this stuff's quite achievable. And this is a safe way to do it. So let's get back to some of our descriptions. So we covered self-esteem, security, ambitions, personal relations, and sex relations. I broke it into acceptable sex or hidden sex. And then Bill covered pride. Well, I give you the one example, but there's other examples, and Bill pulled these out of the step book, pride's a big one. And he gets into pride in the step book, maybe self-righteous, uh, in the sense that only my beliefs are right, or grandiose, grand ambitions. We spoke about ambitions. Well, these are grand ambitions. How about an ego? Pride, ego. That was the first one, was pride, touching self-righteousness or grandiosity. The second one, pride, ego, or an egomaniac. Does this relate to you is the question. All of these aren't going to relate to all people. You'll have to find what fits you. Does this fit you? So egomaniac, obsessed with one's own greatness. It isn't necessarily that easy to admit that about yourself, or maybe it is. How about playing the big shot when it was unwarranted? See, that unwarranted, playing that big shot, it's like it didn't have to happen. How about self justification? This is all to do with pride, justifying one's excess or to make excessive demands under pride. And we're going to pick that over when we do read the step book. But there was others. Bill tied pride to the seven deadly sins. And in fact, there seems to be eight. One, he didn't tie it to a deadly sin, but let's get into it. How about greed? An excessive desire to have more than needed. Did it affect your greed, your resentment? If so, throw it on the list. How about lust? An intense desire for something. It's usually sexual. How about anger? So, oh, well, I'm making an anger list. How can anger be there if I'm angry? Well, you ever heard of, say, compounding anger? Maybe it compounds and becomes rage. One thing makes you angry, and then it makes you more angry, and before you know it, you're crazy. Well, maybe it factors in here. Gluttony, to consume in excess. Envy, to painfully want what someone else has, but it's not based on a resentment. Maybe you like Elvis Presley, would like to have what he had, for example. Maybe that dates me at this point. How about sloth? Were you lazy? Could you have done better? I don't know. As a parent, in a marriage, working, or whatever the case may be. He tied him to seven, and my research suggests this next one is also considered a deadly sin. That's vainglory or vanity. It's outward. This desire to be seen, appreciated, acknowledged, or accepted, but it's an excessive. I don't know. Is my hair, any hair out of place? I can't leave the house looking perfect and all that. And so, does that affect you in a variety of ways? How about remorse? It's regret. Did that affect you? Now, that was in the big book. How about futility? Having no useful result. How about sucking in the old drinks, right? And destroying everything without working for you? Anyway, maybe that was futile. Unhappiness. That was in the big book, as was futility. That's a sadness, anxiety, distress. Let's get back to the step book. Have you been power mad now and then? Any of that going on? Obsessed with gaining power, and it often hurts others. So you ask yourself, does that fit you? Jealous or jealousy. Those are negative feelings, wanting what another has. And it's tied to resentment. There's a you want what they got, and you're jealous. Maybe they got some girl you'd like, or guy, or they got money, or whatever the stuff that's at their house. They got the white picket fence, and you don't. Things like that. How about this one? Pride in reverse. It's in the step book. Bill talks about it as pride in reverse, and it's despair or gloom is another description of it. Has that affected you at all? How about revenge? Are you to retaliate. Does that you want any revenge? Have you done any of that? Did it affect you? Frustration, for example. Depression, did it make you depressed? Did that affect you in column 3? Self-pity, feeling sorry or sad for oneself. How about that? And that's in the step. Possessive, it's controlling. Any of that going on? Did it cause you to worry in excess? Extremism, that a struggle at the top or hide underneath, and in the big book, the grouch or the brainstorm. Was there any of that going on? So you could contemplate what fits here for you and sort of work it into your column 3, and it expands your mind. It helps you better understand what's going on with yourself and how it might have fit you, or what pieces of it might have fit you. Maybe they're wrapped together a little bit. A couple of things going on. The better you understand yourself, the better you're going to understand this process, the better your shot at recovery, the better of you seeing and understanding what might have drove your step 1. That pride, coming back to that again, that was a big one. And so what are we going to replace that pride with? True humility. We're going to work on that, and this is going to help us to work on that process. So we can work on this over some time here. There's no urgency, right? We're getting into this list, working it top to bottom. There's a lot to contemplate here. So hey, when I was told to do just step 1 for a year, well, you know what? If you work on this for a little while, you're gaining on it. You're getting somewhere. Don't get locked into anything. Just top to bottom, keep moving on. The time to open these doors is with the sponsor in step 5. And after today, then we're going to move on to column 4. So, spend some time building this list, and give yourself that time. Spend some time defining some of these words, understanding what you think might fit for you, what might apply to you directly. Keep your list safe. You can, that master copy of these different things, you keep that separate even from your list if you need to, but you understand now why you might need a whole paper for that column 3, so that you can better break out some of how these things work, and how you might have been affected by the anger or resentment you have, and how that anger and resentment might have contributed to you going back to drinking. And also, because this is there's a whole lot more programs out there than just alcohol, I really wanted to bring out this list because it's going to better affect or allow you to see across the board, whether it's an overeater, or whether you're the codependent, or you have other violent issues, or whatever the case may be. Well, I hope that you found this helpful. Thank you so much for listening and for putting some real effort into this particular step. It's truly a big one, and I hope I've been helpful. Well, have a nice day.
If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified when new content is added. Also, you can support the channel 12-Step Guide with Troyo by donating through PayPal to hsworldservice@yahoo.com. In Step 4, we are laying the groundwork and planting seeds for the 9th step promises. Those promises are: we are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Keep moving forward. It's worth the effort,